I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you'd call the roll, please.
Dave Waddington.
Here.
Dan Delahunt.
Here.
John Fike.
Here.
Walt Matthews. William Siemens.
Here.
Greg Peugeot.
Here. Okay, you have the minutes from the June 15th meeting. If you had a chance to review them, any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meetings are approved. To the audience, this is an adjudication hearing, which means that if you're going to give testimony, you need to be sworn in. On top of that, when you are going to speak, we need you to come to the microphone, give us your name and your address so that they can record it to make sure we've got everybody correct for our minutes. So if you'd raise your right hand if you were going to speak and say, you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Say, I do.
I do.
Sounds good. Everybody's that had their hands up is sworn in. We have several items on the agenda. The first one is at 1636 Hayes Avenue. It's an area variance to the zoning code section 1139.08 to allow a new storage building within the minimum front yard setback in a limited manufacturing district. We have staff comments. Is there anything additional you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The site in this proposal is zoned LM, limited manufacturing. The adjacent zoning to this site to the north is RRB, residential business. To the east is limited manufacturing. To the south is limited manufacturing, and to the west is limited manufacturing. The existing use of this lot is vacant. There's no structure currently on this plot of land. The surrounding uses of this are residential and commercial. The proposed use of this site is commercial. The applicant is proposing to construct a new storage building on this property and is seeking a 5-foot front yard setback variance to meet and match the building setback to the east, which is also 5 feet. The required front setback in this zoning district is 30 feet, so they're looking for a 25-foot relief to the zoning code requirements. The owner of the proposed parcel also owns a storage unit to the east. The parcel in question tonight is small, not squared, and oddly shaped given the applicant building restraints. The applicant has stated to staff that the front setback requirements would limit highly the amount of storage units that would fit onto the site. The site has been vacant for over a decade. Prior to the current owner's oversight of the property, it was full of dumped rubble, overgrown weeds, and abandoned cars and boats. Since then, the applicant has cleaned up the site and continues to do so, and will continue to do so with this project. The storage business is a permitted use at this site. Based on all of that analysis, planning staff supports the requested variance at 1336 Hayes Avenue and suggests the following conditions upon approval, and that's that all applicable permits are obtained to the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? So if you come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Matt Ruff, 713 Kern Street, and I'm one of the owners, along with my brother, of the property. In 2003, we purchased the building next door, which now has 52 units in it, and here's a little history of it, some pictures of what it looked like when we bought it. It was in worse shape than what this property was. And when we bought the original property, we had two tenants, and we cleaned the property up. And if you go further back into that, you'll see what we did in the rear. But, we got that one up and running, and then in 2013, I believe, the city foreclosed on the building on the corner. It was an old auto repair shop. Bunch of junk sitting around, and they didn't want it, so they passed it on to, well, they had it tore down, and then the city passed it on to the county land bank, and they heard that we were interested in it to add on for more storage units. So we bought the property and finished clearing it out and everything, and we've been just mowing the grass and sitting on it for right now, and now we decided to build more. But the building we want to build on is going to be, it's 140 by 40. It'll contain 26 storage units, 10 by 20 storage units, and it's back to back. So there's front doors out front and there's doors on the back. That's why we need the building to push forward so we can maximize, the structure and make it worth our while. I mean, we're looking at spending about 200 grand on this deal. So if we push it back too far, we won't be able to do back-to-back building there. So that's basically what we want to do. Yeah. We'll have 26 units and it'll add to the 52 that we already have. But we needed to push the building towards the front so we have room to get around the back of it before it hits the property line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wish to speak in favor of this request?
Good.
Is there anyone then wish to speak against this request? If not, then we'll come back to the board. Any questions?
Just wanted to verify that, through you, Mr. Chairman, that you're keeping that lined up in the same line with the front of all the rest of the buildings,
It's actually going to be 5 foot back.
back away from North
From the
Depot?
rest of them, yeah. We're already, the front of the building is already 22 feet off the edge of the road. And then we just want to push that back just a little bit, because it is sort of on the corner, so we can just push it back and then we can still get our equipment and stuff in the back.
Thank you.
Is there any concern from planning staff or anyone else about cars turning left and, from Depot to Hayes with where this proposal would be? And obstruction of views or anything like that?
Yeah, that was something staff ran through, at least during our analysis of the site. Any type of traffic flow planning does review. Essentially, at the end of the day, the engineering department has the say. They didn't have any negative comments for this request, so at the end of the day, I believe that there's no concerns.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
If I may, through the chair, I believe this is where Depot forces you to turn right, and it's blocked there at Hayes, so there's no left turn.
Okay, that's
Okay.
good, thanks.
My question is, do you have any room to push it back any further? Because you're actually 5 foot off the right of way. You may be longer off the paved street. But my concern is that, you're actually from the right of way. So do you have any room to turn in the back, to push it further back?
A little bit. Yeah, we can move it a little. I mean, our concern is the backside. We have to be able to have enough room for vehicles to get in and out of those units, trailers and whatnot. At most, I would say another 5. I mean, really no more than a 10-foot back because it's only so deep. You've only got so much room to move around back there.
I'm just guessing that on the one side, you've got about 30 feet at the corner, and the other corner, the east side, maybe 35, 40 feet, according to the survey.
I think the lot's 80 some, and then if we put a 40, set back 5, so you're looking at about 25 to 30 feet behind the building, which if we went the full 30 feet, there's no room whatsoever. There's no
Right.
room for cars to turn around, or it's no more than just a 10, 15 foot parking space. I mean, the original building we already own, that's 500 foot long, and it's right down the same line. Right.
And there was a building on this spot at one time that I believe, I tried to look back at the old aerials, and it appeared as if it's about right where you're proposing it.
Yeah, that building's set right there too. It was directly in line with the building we already own.
Any other questions? And if none, a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion that we accept it as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, if you call the roll.
Mr. Fike,
Yes.
Dan Delahunt,
Yes.
Greg Pujol,
Yes.
William Siemens.
Yes.
That variance is approved.
Thank you.
There were standard requirements on this, building permits,
Yes, now we'll move
Yeah.
forward from here.
Yep, Steve and I have talked about permits, so
Great.
they're up to speed.
Thank you.
Thank you, all right. Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is at 325 West Perkins Avenue. It's an area variance to zoning code section 1143.09 to allow the construction of a pylon sign within the required 15-foot setback in the general business district. We have the staff comments. Is there anything additional you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The site in question is zoned GB General Business. The zoning to the north is GB General Business. To the east is GB General Business. To the south is in Perkins Township. It is zoned I-1 Light Industrial. To the west is GB General Business. The surrounding uses of this site are both business and light industrial uses. The current use of this site is a vacant lot. They just got site plan approval and they're currently building the project. This is for the sign. The proposed use of this site is a bank. The applicant is proposing to install a pylon sign at this site. It'll be double-sided extruded aluminum cabinet signage. The installation will be the main signage to attract drivers off of Perkins Ave. The sign will be 17 feet 2 inches tall and roughly 13 foot 4 inches wide. The sign is out of the right-of-way and is being placed in a proposed grass area to the east of the bank. If you look at the bottom right, the green is the sign and it shows a setback there. Planning staff did talk with Brady Signs about possibly moving the sign back further to not give such a large variance, but there is concern the sign will be set back too far from the street and pedestrians would not be able to see it with the existing structures and signage being so close to the right-of-way. Perkins Ave, there is a lot of signs built up to the property line, pylon signs and monument signs, and that's because prior to 2003, there was not this strict setback standard, so you could build up to the property line. So a lot of the current structures on Perkins Ave build up to that line, and therefore they're concerned if they set it back that it would impede on visibility for that site. Based on this analysis, planning staff supports the requested variance at 325 West Perkins Ave with the following conditions, and that's that all applicable permits are obtained through the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to the sign's construction, and that the sign shall not interfere with the line of sight for any vehicle or pedestrian. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? If so, please come to the podium.
I'm David Mack with Brady Sign, 1721 Hancock Street, Sandusky. Just reinforcing what was said here earlier, we feel based on the location of existing signage with next to zero setback and then also the positioning of district tire, we feel it's very important for the variance to be considered here because of when you're traveling west on Perkins Avenue, if the variance is not granted, the signage basically would be ineffective and not seen from the road. Given the investment that the bank is investing locally here, we think that this would be an important measure to consider. Any questions, please let me know, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay. We'll see if anybody else wants to speak. Is there anyone else in the audience who would speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who would speak against this request? And we'll return to the board if there are any questions.
The position, how does the position of this sign relate to the AutoZone sign just west?
To the chair, the AutoZone sign to the west is right on the property line. So this would be very similar to, it's only a 2-foot difference. As far as the width, I'm uncertain what that sign is, but I believe the height is very similar, over 15 feet.
So this will be farther away from the right-of-way than the AutoZone?
Correct. The AutoZone, the furthest pylon, or the closest, excuse me, to the right-of-way is right on the property line.
Thank you.
Just so that you know, this morning I was out there early to take pictures just to see what it looked like, and then I sent a note to the planning department, asked them a question, and because there's AutoZone, there's District Tire, and then further on down, there's 2 more signs. One is Butts, and I don't know if it was the glass company's got a sign, but just ask them if those signs were there before zoning, so that they were unregulated, and the answer was yes. 2003 is when the zoning for signage was rewritten, and that's when everything was pushed back. So those signs were all in, ahead of zoning, so they're allowed to stay as non-conforming, so. Doesn't mean going forward that just because they've done it, we don't need to allow them, because they still need a variance, but that's what they're here for.
Right.
My second thought is that I know that we had a sign 2 meetings ago that wanted to be closer to the road, and we asked them to be 6 feet back. It's a different sign. That was a street or a
Yeah, that was a monument-style sign.
monument sign
Yep.
on the ground, but
That was on Route 6 on Cleveland Road.
No, it was on the west side, right, for the,
right, it was, we asked them to be back to match Lions Park sign.
right.
Right,
That was for the health department.
right.
If I recall correctly, Mr. Chairman, the Cleveland Road sign that was referenced, I believe they requested a 5-foot setback, and that was granted.
I'm just personally, just my feelings, I'm reluctant to have it this close to the street. That block area is a congested area with buildings that are tight to the front and signage, so it's, to me, this is a bad situation, making it worse. One of the things that disturbed me is this, as I read through the practical difficulties, the question was, would the variance be substantial? And the answer is no, and when we're asking, 13 is what the variance, 13 is what you're asking for, and the variance is 50, variance is 2 feet left, 13-foot variance, that is a substantial variance. The other one is that the property was purchased with no notice of zoning. I find that hard to believe. This is a business that's built several buildings. They must be able to have known that there is zoning requirements. This is something that should have been asked in advance. And I'm pretty sure that when they placed their building on the site, they met all zoning requirements. So just to have a couple of issues of how the form was filled out. But my feelings is I'd like to see the sign at least 5 feet back from the front, from the property line. I had a hard time telling from the drawing that I saw that whether it was positioned, whether it was off the edge of the sidewalk 2 feet, or if that was where the property line was, because the sidewalk isn't necessarily, at least in the city of Sandusky, on the property line. The back of it is typically 1 foot off, unless it's a 5-foot sidewalk. So there's a dotted line there, and I don't know what that represents, or but either way, I would like to see the sign move back to 5 feet off the property line, wherever that is, just so you know it's not the sidewalk.
What is that in this drawing, the dotted line? Do you know what that dashed?
So the lighter of the dashed, of the 2 dashed, is that what you're asking?
It goes right through the arrow at enter only.
Off the top of my head, I do not recall what that would be. The darker dashed line, based on my analysis of this drawing, is the property line.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Mack, if the sign went up, would it be like in the middle of the sidewalk, or would it be inside the sidewalk?
So the leading edge of the sign, so if you're looking at the sign, the left side of the sign there where the F is, from that leading edge, we call it, to the sidewalk, there would be a 2-foot gap between them.
What did you say the leading edge was?
Where the F on the left side of the sign, so it's just the side of the sign that would be closest to the road. From that edge to the sidewalk, there would be a 2-foot gap.
Okay, and then where it's actually in the ground would be further back?
Yeah, it would be 2 feet plus the 13
Half a
feet,
third,
4 inches, half of that, plus 2 feet.
so like 8 feet from the sidewalk?
The post
Yes.
would be.
Okay,
The center of the sign would be.
got it.
That, the 5 foot is just my thinking, it's not what they're requesting, and it's not what, I haven't heard anybody else say the same thing, so it's up for
Okay.
discussion.
Well, I was wondering the same, that the timing between the existing signs and when the signage in the code was revamped, and that was 2003.
Yeah,
So everything was
all the signs
before
out there
that,
are
before that.
pre-2003.
And we have been working hard to clean up the looks along there.
Yeah, the Cleveland Road sign, if you remember, the right-of-way in Cleveland Road is very wide.
Right.
So that sign, when it's installed, even though it'll be just at 5 feet back, it's gonna look like it's about 40 feet back.
Right. Right.
And this, with the sidewalk right tight on there,
When a business goes out of business and there's a sign, are they able to use that sign?
No, so when a business goes out and under, typically,
The sign's still left there?
so that,
Just redo the sign?
correct, so the sign would become a non-conforming use. There's a year period, if there's not a business that moves in, that sign can stay there. After a year period of vacancy, the sign would have to be removed upon staff's request. And we've had a couple cases like that, and we've gotten signs removed that have been vacant for quite some time.
I'm kind of with you, John. I think we need a little breathing room. We're never going to get, as businesses change, we'll never be able to push them back. We start letting them stay right on the road like that. Can we modify it and ask them to put back 5 feet?
but instead of making a motion and passing something, I'd rather give them the opportunity to say, let us go talk to our client or table it.
So we'd like to table it. I'll make a
So-
motion that we table, go back and see if you can get 5 feet from your customer. And
Is it possible to, if you're okay with the 5 feet, we can present that to the client? That way we don't have to wait any additional time. And if for some reason they still feel the 2 feet is necessary, could we come back to this committee to reconsider? That way we don't have to wait an extra 30 days.
I don't know that we have that ability, do we pass something that's kind of what it is.
I believe you could reapply and ask for the 2 feet again if this were to be approved tonight. And I think that's more of a question for law to confirm.
If it's not denied, I don't see there being any issue with, the only time limit where you can't reapply is based on a denial from the BZA of an application. It's a year or two, I don't remember exactly the time frame, but there's a time frame which someone can't reapply for the same thing. To the extent that BZA wants to make a motion to grant the 5 foot tonight, I think that's an option. Or wants to grant something tonight, to the extent that the applicant would then want to reapply for something different, it would be treated like a new application, and that would be considered on its merits separately.
Okay. So a motion is
Well,
in
I'll
order.
withdraw both and start over again and ask that they move it back for 5 feet, and then we approve it under that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, plus the staff's comments as to permits, et cetera. Any questions on that motion? I looked at the clerk to make sure that we're getting it clear.
I have moved back 5 feet, or should I add an additional 5 feet to what was requested?
No.
Be additional 3 feet.
An additional 3 feet?
5 feet total.
5 feet total.
It'd be a 10-foot allowance to eventually end up with a 5-foot setback.
Any questions on that motion? If none, if you'd call the roll.
Greg Peugeot.
Yes.
Dan Delahunt.
Yes?
William Siemens.
Yes.
John Fike.
Yes, that variance as presented, as approved by us, is 5 foot is approved.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, and these are 3 that are similar, but we need to take them one at a time. I will say that once we make the comments on the first one, they will probably be very similar to the next 2. So the first parcel, I'm not sure whose that is.
Singlets.
It's for Dan Singler, will be the guinea pig, so to speak, no offense. But parcel 56000983.001, it's an area variance to zoning code section 1137.08A to allow a new residential building within the minimum front yard setback in a commercial service district. We have the staff's comments. Anything additional?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to pass the microphone on to Aaron Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to mention, since I wrote you all a memo in your packet that comes before these three cases, because they're a little bit different than something we usually see. So the Community Development Department and Planning Department staff have directed and coordinated these residents to ask for a unified setback. So we got everybody on the same page to find a setback that worked for them. There's an additional constraint on these lots. They're much narrower and shorter than the lots that we previously sold on the block directly to the west. So they have an access easement that's 18 feet at the rear of the lot, which constrains their buildable area. Also, a 15-foot setback is what we came to that would work well with everyone and their planned home designs. It also fits really well with the built-up block that are neighboring these properties and the traditional layout of the city in this whole neighborhood. So I just wanted to say that, the next three cases are almost identical, as Mr. Fike, you mentioned, and that the Community Development Department supports the requests for setbacks. Additionally to the side setback on the third case, because the corner lot constraint is more constrained than normal since they're on a corner lot. Thank you.
Okay. I will state, I went out this morning and measured the neighbors' houses. I can't remember the address numbers, but the first one, which is the closest one to them, that house is 14 feet 5 inches off the property line. They're asking for 15. The next one is even closer. Typically, I know we've looked at things, if you're like what your neighbor is, we've always accepted that as the guidance. So with that said, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? So please come to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Dan Singler, 6134 Jeffrey Lane, Sylvania. My wife and I are the proud owners of what I know is Lot C, not whatever the parcel number is. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about this variance. As Aaron had stated, we're requesting a 15-foot front setback versus, I guess, the normal 30-foot. And this would allow our home to fit, and we'd have a 20-foot driveway, and it would accommodate an 18-foot wide alleyway. As a side note, as you had mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that it's consistent with the existing homes east of where we will be, and this is also a joint effort with our future neighbors as far as the front setback. So thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So anyone else wish to speak in favor of this request? You don't need to if you're in favor of it, but you're welcome to. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this request? Not hearing any, we return to the board for comments, questions, or a motion.
I would be happy to make a motion to approve the 15-foot front yard setback. I think we probably should deal with the other
All
side
separate.
setback.
Yeah.
You want to do them all separately?
All separate, yeah.
Okay.
So just
Then
this lot.
Just this lot, I'll make a motion to approve this variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Please call the roll, please.
William Siemens,
Yes.
Dan Dillahunt,
Yes.
John Fike,
Yes.
Greg Pujol.
Yes.
That variance for that lot number is approved. The next one is for parcel 56000983.003. This would be the center lot, if I'm correct? Or I am correct?
That is correct, yes.
And this is a variance request identical to the one we.
Yep, it's identical other than the parcel, yep.
Okay. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request?
Christine Mack, 118 Greenbrier Lane. As Mr. Singler stated, we are all requesting the same setback, for uniformity's sake, as well as to create an urban design environment that mimics our easterly neighbors. Our lots are significantly smaller than those new construction builds to the west of ours. So in order to fit our envisioned design of our building, of our homes, we will need the setback to be shorter. It also allows for better conversation amongst passersby and people along the sidewalk and between our homes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this request? Now I'll return to the board for questions, comments, or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would also make a motion to approve this variance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All those, excuse me, please call the roll. Going too fast here.
Dan Delahunt,
Yes.
Greg Peugeot,
Yes.
John Fike,
Yes,
William Siemens.
Yes.
that variance is approved. The next is for parcel 56-00983-002, and I'm assuming this is the corner.
This would be the corner, correct?
We have, it's an area variance for zoning code sections 1137.08A and B to allow new residential building within the minimum front yard and secondary street and combined setbacks for a corner lot in a commercial service district. We have the staff comments. Is there anything additional you wish to add?
Yes, I would like to add a few for this one because they're asking for 3 variances instead of just the front setback, so I'd like to further elaborate on that. So the first variance is a front setback similar to the previous 2 cases, same thing, 15-foot relief for a 15-foot setback. The second variance being requested is the side yard setback of a corner lot. The minimum side yard setback of a corner lot is 10 feet. They are asking for a 2-foot variance there to allow an 8-foot secondary street as the code references its side yard setback. And the third variance being requested is a combined side yard setback because of the requirements from the 10-foot setback of the corner. And then also the second, the total combined setback must be 15 feet. Because of the buildable area being so narrow, they would need a 4-foot relief to have an 11-foot combined side yard setback variance. And just to give an overview of all these properties, the city acquired this land in 2009 and maintained ownership of these 3 parcels until 2023, where the applicants have just purchased. Staff has determined that all these variances being requested are appropriate, especially the corner lot, considering that their building footprint is a lot more restrained than the other 2. And because of that, we support the variance with the typical condition, which is all applicable permits must be obtained to the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this request? Please come to the podium.
Should I sign in real quick? My name is Brian Kaufman. I'm the architect. I'm here representing Sonny and Aaron. I work with Myron Smart Homes. Architect, also intend to be the builder for this house as well. When they met with us about a month and a half back, main goals that they wanted to do, obviously this is very important to them. They're very excited about being here in Sandusky and kind of building off the energy of some of the development that's happening. They wanted a space that they could come to, a home that they could come to that was kind of surrounded around a pool, being outside, entertaining, enjoying the water, members of the yacht club kind of up at the lake there. So just taking advantage of that and then being able to kind of walk into downtown. With this being so close to kind of the commercial district, kind of take on a little bit of that extension of downtown and with opportunities of other development that's kind of happening around there. Some of our main goals were the garage and the drive coming off of the alley there. You're either set up with a situation where you have a 3-car garage that just runs parallel with the alley, which doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to see, guests that might be coming by or that. So they wanted to try to turn that lot, turn the garage so that from their kitchen, from different spaces, they could actually see people coming up to the house. Another big thing with this is that that portion is south-facing, so we're trying to get as much natural light into their main living space as we can. So pulling that back does allow us to get some light into the kitchen space. Keeping the garage low to 1 story allows the sun to kind of get in through to their kind of courtyard space that we're creating throughout the day. So those were some of the bigger goals. At the front, we were showing like a front porch, so we are trying to push that 15-foot front setback. But we wanted to keep that corner open, one, to make it, just sensitive to the neighbors and for people passing by, having a neighborhood kind of feel, but also kind of opens up that corner for views, for cars trying to turn along there as well. We do feel like we're kind of trying to echo a little bit of the style, as the house that's being built across Warren right now. So, in order to get a little bit more space, we're trying to be sensitive with our request too. We're not trying to push too far, but we really want to have a pool space that they could use that's connected with their main living space to flow inside and out, throughout the day, throughout the summer when they're using it, but still have an adequate enough room in their interior space to kind of use throughout the year. So along the Warren Street, we are trying to tie in the garage structure, and this is really meant to be, this is still really early in design, more conceptual, but wanted at least to give an idea of like form and mass and scale. But we do want to kind of tie in a screen wall along that Warren Street with some nice landscaping and that, just to create kind of a nice kind of walkway, sidewalk going along there. So that's, kind of our approach and what we were trying to do here. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Anyone who wishes to speak against this request? Then I'll return back to the board. I have a quick question, or comment rather. We don't approve your design. I'm not saying we don't like it. I'm just saying we don't approve designs here, but it is good to see what you're doing. My hope is, since you said it was preliminary, that the structure is 2-story. For this small of lot, I'd hate to see your house look like the one that's going to be across the street. That's got to be, what is that, 6 stories tall over there right now?
Sure looks like it.
That house would not be appropriate on this lot, so I hope that you stay with something that's reasonable, because I'm not sure what the neighbors' houses are, but you look like you've got, one's a box, Mr. Singler, the other one's got a gable roof on it. So,
I promise it looks much better.
but you told us what yours is going to look like. We hope it looks very similar to that and not get too much taller and too boxy, so it kind of fills up the corner. So those are just my comments. Any questions from the board then?
Just a quick question, and it doesn't have to do with this variance, but all access to the garage will be from the alley. It won't be, you won't be requesting a curb cut onto Warren. Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, the motion is in order.
I would make a motion to approve all 3 variances as applied for.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any questions on the motion? Being none, if you'd call the roll.
John Fike,
Yes.
Greg Peugeot,
Yes.
William Siemens,
Yes.
Dan Dillahunt.
Yes.
That variance, 3 variances, is approved. Is there anything additional that wasn't on the agenda, other business? If not, motion in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thanks.